Hey everyone, it's Ryan Fontenot here again with the 1 Million Cent podcast, where we are aiming to be part of seeing 1 million teens around the globe trained to share their faith in everyday life. So every time we gather on our podcast, you will either hear me sharing a trick, a thought, an idea on how you can be more active in living sense, or like today, I will sit down with another believer, another leader in ministry, and let them share the knowledge God has given them. And so I'm excited today to have a recent friend of mine on the podcast, someone I just met a few months ago, but is in ministry, doing life, has recently written a book. I know you're going to be encouraged. Welcome to the show, Nick. How's it going, my friend?
Man, glad to be here. Yeah. Really exciting season of life. And yeah, I just wrote a book and been kind of going around, just, similar to you, and just seeing the work that God is doing all over the place, and just how he's raising, sinners stuck in their sin, dead in their sin, to life in Christ. And I mean, it's been so encouraging to me, and I think to the body of believers as well. And so, yeah, man, just a fun season of life and soaking it all in day by day.
I love it, man. I love it. And Nick is in South Carolina, not
Correct.
North Carolina.
Yeah.
And those are not the same place for people who don't live over there. I live in Texas. We don't know what's happening. So there's not North Texas and South. Well, there's North Texas and South Texas, but it's all Texas, So
You guys are your own nation.
Well, you don't get me started, bro. Don't let's don't get started on all that. Right?
Well, let's not go down that rabbit hole, huh?
That's right. That's right, man. But I'm so glad you're here. I look forward to you sharing a little bit more about what you're doing and what you do and everything like that. But before we jump in too much, man, I want us to stretch it out, warm up a little bit with some rapid fire questions. Sound good to you?
I'm here for
all
it.
Right,
let's
man.
do it.
Number one, Nick, as a Gen Zer, bro, are you a coffee guy or an energy drink guy? What's your flavor?
Coffee. Through and through, light roast, preferably Ethiopian single origin, natural, not washed, and black, no room for cream or sugar.
And that, my friend, is a telltale sign this brother is Gen Z. I love it, man. I love it.
All the way.
That is a coffee guy right there. That's a coffee guy. I have guys who say, yeah, I'm a coffee guy. I'm like, what do you drink? Anything? I'm like, yeah, you're not really
probably not a coffee guy. You're a 7-Eleven overheated.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right, man.
Pray for you.
Well, having said that, man, are you a sweet time of the day for you, man, where you're just in the flow? Morning, midday, night. Where are you?
Night. 100% night.
All right. When you are traveling with family, drive or fly, destination, ready to get there, let's fly there, journey, what do you want to do?
Oh, man, it depends. Preferably fly, always. I'm a much more, hey, I'll check out all the scenes and everything like that when we get there. But, I mean, also having a 1.5-year-old, anybody listening who's had a 1.5-year-old and tries to go on Delta, you're like... It's
a different
day. If we're
in
Florida, we're driving to Seattle. It's no question about it. So yeah, I think in this season of life, flying with family is a little tougher, but normally I'd preferably fly.
I like it, man. Winter, spring, summer, fall, man. What's your season of choice?
Oh man, it's like changed up for me, honestly. So I grew up in Florida, where summertime is everything, on the lake, on the ocean, going to the beach. Yeah. I mean, that's just like it when you live in Florida. But lately, moving up to the Carolinas, honestly, I've really begun to enjoy late fall, early winter, where it's not too frigid, but it's not super like scorching hot outside, and the colors are changing, and people are, getting out a bit more. So I've been lately a fall guy.
All right, man. I like that. All right. So, man, this is going to be a good question for you to answer, because from Florida, now in South Carolina, beach, mountains, where are you going, man?
Mountains.
Oh man, he has officially left the state of Florida.
I went to the beach probably 3 times a year for about 20 years of my life. So
really? Wow, there you go.
Yeah, man, I'm just kind of, I don't know. And also my wife is a Crockett as her maiden name, so she's related to Davy Crockett by blood.
There you go. There you go.
In Texas somewhere.
Come on, let's go.
The Alamo.
Don't get us started, man.
I don't know what's happened, but lately, I've just been a big mountain guy. I love to hike. I love to get out in the forest, and a lot of fun.
Awesome. I love that. That's awesome, man. Well, when you are traveling or you're in the mountains, man, are you going to prefer, after a good meal, You gonna go for pie? You gonna go for cake, man? What's your favorite
Oh
choice there?
man. Whew, man. I think it
You can be
depends,
like,
doesn't it?
you can be like,
Doesn't it?
I
Yeah,
don't know,
it
man.
totally
It does.
depends what pie and what cake. But I would
That's
say
good. Okay.
most times, I'm probably gonna go for cake.
Okay, there you go. Do you have a
Yeah.
cake of choice that you're like, man, this is if birthday, this is my birthday cake I like. Like me,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's really a cake, but I like cookie cake, right?
Let's
So,
go.
man, let's go. That's my
You like
favorite.
you like
So,
cookies in cake form is really
hey, there we go. I like
yeah.
that. I like a big round cookie with icing on it.
Dude, I can't remember the name of it, but my grandmother made it for me when I was younger, and I wanted it every single year after that. Like
I love it.
literally every
I
year I
love it.
wanted it. But it
There
was
you go.
this like tangerine meringue
Mm. Mm-hmm.
cake of
Yep.
some sort. I don't know exactly
Yeah.
what you call it, but
Yeah.
it was just excellent. I mean, it was so
Yeah.
good. So
We
good.
don't have those skills anymore, man. We don't have those
Yeah, no,
skills
we've
anymore.
it's a generation has lost its touch. So pray for us.
I love it. I love it, man. Well, let's think about maybe a little more spiritual here, man. So when
Yeah,
it comes to the Bible, are you kind of, hey, I'm the guy who, man, I lean toward the Old Testament, the stories, the narratives, the history. Are you a New Testament guy? You man, I love Jesus's life. I love the epistles, man. Man, Old Testament or New Testament? I know the answer is both. You can't have one without the other. But where would you
totally.
go?
Yeah, I would say as an evangelist primarily, I'm obviously going to lean New Testament.
Yeah, yeah,
Just the new covenant under Christ. I mean, that is
right.
the apex point of the entire
Yeah,
Bible. Nothing in the
yeah,
Bible is even relevant without. I think some
yeah,
people would disagree, but I would say the entire Bible
yeah,
is pretty irrelevant
yeah,
without the apex point being the death, burial, and
yeah.
resurrection of Jesus. However, I will say that I do think that most of church today leans on the New Testament primarily for
Hmm.
preaching, for teaching points, for small group discussion. And I definitely think that we um, can find a lot of value in the Old Testament too, like
Yeah, yeah.
tremendous value. And the Old
Yeah.
Testament, I mean, for obvious reasons, has been the harder part, I think, for me to work through
Mhm.
of just understanding and like making sure I get the narrative and kind of understand where all the pieces go and the timeline of it. And I think that,
That's good.
bringing that back into teaching, because really what it's doing is it's setting the stage for something like Jesus.
Yeah,
And so when you can get a
that's right.
really clear, vivid picture of how the Old Testament is setting up the stage, how these prophets are crying out and, declaring that one will come
Mhm.
to set them free. And then, even earlier on in the Old Testament where people are oppressed by different nations and they're being kind of set up in these hierarchical
Yeah.
power structures. I sound like Jordan Peterson now. And they're kind of having a hard time living under it, and it just doesn't seem to be
Right.
the right fit, and they're having to bring all these sacrifices, and it's an extreme burden on the human condition and the human soul. And
Mhm.
so there's wailing out, crying out for one to come, and then you get to the New Testament. So like when you set the stage like that and you can really relate to the human emotion, I think that the
Mm.
New Testament just resounds all the more.
Comes alive, yeah.
So
I
yeah,
think you
man,
just
that's
talked
that's kind of
yourself into
me.
being an Old Testament guy.
Maybe I did. I don't know. Maybe I need to be an Old Testament historian.
No, hey, I was in, man. I was leaning in. I'm on it, man. So, all right. Well, when it comes to the New Testament, we got four Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, recording the life of Jesus, different perspective, different ways, different
Yeah.
personalities and
Hmm.
nuances. My question is, man, who you rolling with? Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John? You can only pick one. Who's your
100%.
book? Who's your guy?
Luke, 1,000%. 1,000%.
Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
triple down on that.
All right.
Yeah, for a few reasons. Yeah, Luke was really the only one who didn't have like a very close, like bonded
Mm-hmm.
relationship and like very, close, harmonious understanding of who Jesus was. Like he was really actually
Right.
just sent out by Theophilus, whoever he was,
Yeah.
to go out and
Yeah.
record what this guy named Jesus actually did through his life and through his ministry. And so one
Yeah.
thing I really love about that is that it really has the ability to be unbiased. I mean, he's just
Yeah.
going out and
Yeah.
recording what people are already saying. Whereas, like John, while I absolutely believe that the Bible is inerrant, I believe it's inspired by the Holy Spirit through and through every word. Uh, John's gospel, if you're going to weigh them as far as like what would have the ability to be biased versus not, Luke
Mm-hmm.
is going to be far more as far as like journalism goes,
Yeah.
credible, quote
Yeah.
unquote.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
For the skeptic, for the modern person who's just like, well, yeah, they were all his friends, and your friends are all going to talk
Right.
great about you. So like, why would? And so I just think Luke
Yeah.
fits the narrative of that a bit more. And then also,
Yeah.
two of the passages that I used a lot when I first started preaching both come from Luke. Luke
Hmm.
24, the road to Emmaus, and Luke 19, the
Hmm.
story of Zacchaeus. And
Yeah.
both of
Yeah.
those stories have meant just a lot to me through my journey. So, of course, appreciate all the
Yeah. That's
Gospels
good.
for all that they are, but Luke has really
Right.
been the one that has kind of separated itself. And it's also the one
Man.
that I enjoy preaching from the most because I see more of myself kind of in Luke than
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
in really any of the other writers.
That's cool, man. I've found that people that are readers, researchers, they're like, man, Luke's my guy, And so
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's where you lean or not necessarily just your preference of, hey, I want to know some facts, some history, some surrounding context. And so I appreciate that, man. I love that you didn't just give me an answer; you gave me an answer for your answer, and that's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about right here. So
Yeah.
so listen, I know if you're listening or watching this, hopefully, man, already you got some value out of this deal because Nick just gave us a little Bible lesson there, and I love that. That's what I love about this podcast. We have questions that we are, hey, let's ask this, but you never know where you're going to go. And so, man, thanks for sharing that. Now, this next question, though, before we jump into the real meat of this thing, is one that I think everybody wants to know. People are curious and they love to guess. And that is this: is Nick Hurst a dog guy or a cat guy? Now, don't answer that yet. We're going to come back to it at the end. I want you to think about it. And as you guys kind
I do
of,
not have to think about it.
and you're judging Nick right now by his voice, or if you're watching by his look, you're going, I think this guy is a. Go ahead and drop in the comments. Go ahead and let us know. Do you think Nick is a dog guy or a cat guy? I'd love to see. Did you get it right? Are we correct? And so we'll circle back to that at the end. And I love that my boy already knows what he's going to say on that. Well, Nick, right now, man, let's jump into this thing, man. What are you doing right now? What is your life, man? What do you do? People that don't know you, what do you do? Tell us.
Yeah, man. Well, I think that life is recently, my wife and I have been talking a lot about this. Life is recently just kind of changing in a lot of ways of what we do and then what we intend to do.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, just what we do, we host a YouTube channel. It's called Nick and Chelsea on YouTube. We've been doing that my wife has been doing it for well over a decade. I've been a part of it for about 6 years now. And so we've run that for the past, several years. And then we also host a podcast called Forever Changed with Nick and Chelsea. We just wrote a book called Marriage Minded 10 Ways to Know If You Found the One. For those of you
There it
watching, you
is.
can see the pretty little book. Published that with Zondervan.
Yes.
That's my wife's third book, my first book. And then on top of that,
Love it.
similar to you, Ryan, kind of going all over the place with preaching and speaking in different churches, conferences, events, missions, all sorts of things like that. And so it's kind of hush hush right now, but we, I've done everything to really form the nonprofit that will structure around our ministry efforts
Yeah.
for the future going forward. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, man, we're kind of moving slowly, just like very gradually, less effort less effort on the media and on the growing the bottom line with the
Mm-hmm.
business and like all that stuff, and we're kind of shifting that more into the ministry efforts. I mean, we just have such a heart for the
Yeah.
lost, and so
Yeah.
that's kind of been where we're going, man. That's sort of what we're up to on
Love
any
it.
given day. It's one of those things or a culmination of several of those things, but that's
Right.
kind of what life looks like right now.
I love it, man. That's so good, bro. I love, like I said, Nick and I just met a few months ago, and it's just been a joy to just catch up, man. Kind of like, hey, where have I been? How do I not know this guy? And so it's been cool, man, to see what God has done and is doing. And by your what you just shared right there, sounds like you married up, bro. Sounds like you married up.
1,000%. I don't know
Didn't
if
we
you feel
all?
this way,
Didn't we
Ryan,
all?
but when she said yes, I was like, "What? like,
Yeah, it's for real.
like, are you are you sure?" And
Yes, yeah.
so,
Did you hear what I asked?
yeah, I was like, "You can say no if you want." And
That's
so,
right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that's right.
yeah,
I
I mean,
love it.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Chelsea is gifted. She is smart. She is kind. She's endearing,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, God has just called her in such unique ways and to be in unique places and spaces with her life.
Yeah.
I mean,
So good.
yeah, and I bet you'd feel this way too, Ryan. Is that marriage? People say this, and you're like, yeah, right, whatever. But when you get married and you've been married for a long time, a little bit of time, kind of anywhere in between, you really do realize how much you both complement one another's strengths and
Yeah.
weaknesses.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
man, I just think that is the grace of God over
Yes.
people's lives. I think that's the grace of God over
Yeah.
people's marriages. I am just such a proponent of marriage because it will show you all the things that you are not, but it will complement all the things that your spouse is and what
That's
God is
right.
doing
Yeah.
in them and with them, and how that
Yeah.
blesses the both of you
Mm.
simultaneously. I mean, it is just the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Chelsea is truly awesome.
I love it, man. Golly. I love it when a husband brags on his wife. So, Nick, thanks for doing that, man. So, if you don't learn anything from anything we say today, husbands and future husbands, I hope you hear what Nick just said, man. Bragging on your wife and realizing the beauty of the gift that marriage is an absolute blessing. But that
Mm-hmm.
begs the question, Nick, how did you get to where you are? There are teenagers going to be watching this, collegiates. There's going to be young leaders watching this, and they're going, okay, this dude's married, and they're doing this deal over here. They have this ministry over there. Here's the real question, man. Can you give us kind of a snapshot of your story, man? When did you meet Jesus? Called the ministry? How did you get from death to life and where you are right now?
Yeah, 1,000%. Great question. Yeah, well, I think I've shared a little bit of this with you off air before, but
Mm-hmm.
Clayton King, great friend of yours and of mine,
Mm-hmm.
has been a tremendous part of my story. But I mean, it didn't start with just me hanging out with Clayton one day and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden I'm doing ministry. So my story goes back a lot further. I grew up in Florida, as
Mm-hmm.
I've mentioned previously, here on a
What part of
farm.
Florida did you
North
grow up? Oh, on a
Central. So I
farm.
grew up 45
Okay.
minutes north of Gainesville. Go Gators.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Okay.
yeah, I grew up in a really small town called Live Oak. Great little town. Time of my life growing up there, it was really great for the context I think a young guy needs
Mm-hmm.
to just form and learn and kind of understand how the world works. So yeah, great little small town there called Live Oak. Grew up there on a farm, kind of on the outskirts of town. And yeah, man, just kind of learned about life and learned how to work, how to get up early, how to finish what I start, how to honor my parents, how to honor
Mm.
my elders, and how to just honestly flat out do what you're told and don't ask questions about it. And I just think that sometimes we kind of need that, and we're missing that
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways. And so that was a lot of how I grew up in my formation. But as I got older, I didn't really have an understanding of church. I didn't have an understanding of
Mm.
Jesus. I didn't have an understanding of the gospel. I thought church was just this place that people went and kind of gathered and talked about Jesus and this
Mm-hmm.
ginormous book that is so intimidating called the Bible. And I just didn't really get it. I really honestly thought it was a book full of just like good ideas and stuff that you should try and do and be
Yeah.
nice and that sort of thing. And they just kind of meditate on it. And that was kind of it. So I didn't really understand what all the Bible was. And I remember I grew up, I got in my early teenage years, 14, and I was just struggling with so much, had so many questions about existence and why I was here
Mm.
and what was the purpose of life. And I think a lot of times we downplay the emotions and the questions and the thoughts that young people actually have. We're like, oh, they're 14. They don't know
Right.
nothing. Wait until the IRS calls. We just kind
Yeah.
of like have
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
frame of mind a lot of times. And I even honestly, man, like even just being 25, like I look at 14-year-olds when I go to events or churches or anything like that. And I'm just like, you have no idea. And then I just think back, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh no, they do. And in fact,
Yeah.
that was 2012.
Right.
That
Right.
was a seemingly like a whole different world. Now we live on the other side of the
Yes.
pandemic and we live in an absolutely hyper inflated social media age. And
Mm-hmm.
so I would say it's probably even compounded since I was 14.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so that was, kind of what was going on. I remember one day I went to my grandmother's house after school. I lived I went to school across the street from her house. And so I would always walk
Okay.
across the street, hang out with her for the afternoon until my parents got off work. And then they would come from work and then, and pick me up and we'd go home. And I remember I was just talking to her and she was asking me questions and I was explaining some of the stuff that I was feeling just really honestly and working through. And it was a Wednesday on that particular day. And she just said, "Hey, hop in the car." I was like, "Cool, let's go." I thought we were just going to go to the grocery store or something like that. So she drives me down to the church. She knew that youth, and she had kind of been,
Oh man,
mentioning
yeah.
it to me for a few months. And I was just like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
I don't really want to ever do that, respectfully. And so she put me in the car, drove me down to the church, and then pretty much just let me out. She said, "Hey, a few guys or a few girls there, just go hang out, have a good time. It'll be really normal." And so I get out, I go hang out with them, and it was really cool, honestly. I mean, a lot of great friends of mine went to that church, and so that was kind of the
Mm,
reason I felt somewhat comfortable. I didn't really understand anything that they were talking about when they brought out the Bible or any of the
yeah.
conversation that was going on. I was just kind of a fly on the wall, and I didn't get anything. I did not understand the Bible, didn't understand
Yeah.
Jesus,
Yeah.
didn't understand any of it. But I kept going week after week because I really enjoyed, I don't know, just being around people in a
Yeah.
positive environment. I wasn't in really any stretch an unpopular kid, I would say, at school. Never like had any bullying or anything like that. But I definitely think the crowd of people that you're around in a public environment, especially when you're in your teenage years of really being in the group or needing to be like
Hmm.
publicly affirmed in a group setting,
Yeah.
it's kind of like all the high school jocks rolling together, all the certain sectors of people rolling together,
Hmm.
and that's just a natural teenage thing. But I think that for me, it was definitely going to go in the wrong direction, and so I don't know. This church community being a part of my life at such an early age really played a part in me just kind of shifting course and developing a new circle of friends that I would hang out with on the regular. And so anyway, fast forward, I would say 6 or 8 months. I'm going week after week, still not understanding anything. But then I move up into youth group. And I remember probably 2, 3 weeks into
Mm.
youth group, the new youth pastor, who wasn't previously, I came from the SBC. Okay. So we had something called
Let's
R.A.G.E.s.
go.
And that's where I
Let's
started out
go,
at.
baby.
And
That's right.
so,
Royal ambassadors, for
yes,
those of you who have
sir.
no idea what he's
Never
talking about.
forget. Never forget. And so bump up into the youth group, and I remember the youth pastor preaching one night out of Matthew chapter 7 about a life built on rock, a house built on rock, or a house built on
Hmm.
sand. And it was this picture that Jesus was giving about life and what's your life built on, something firm or something
Hmm.
shaky. And I just had to reckon with I had to reckon with for the
Mm.
first time that my life was built on really shaky
Yeah.
footing and ground, and that anything at any point could absolutely send it spiraling out of control. And so
Yeah.
that really
Yeah.
created a hunger in me. And then 2, 3 months after that, summer camp signups came around. I was like, no, I'm not going to go. And before I know it, I'm stepping off of a bus in Boiling Springs, North Carolina, in July 2012. And the people are just jacked to the nine. I mean, they are so excited that you're
Yeah.
there.
Oh yeah.
Nothing in life matters more than the fact that you're getting off this bus at this university right now. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
this is crazy. I'm like super uncomfortable. And I remember that entire week from Sunday getting off the bus, Sunday afternoon getting off the bus to Thursday late afternoon, I had just dejected the Holy Spirit because I had sensed the Holy
Mm.
Spirit was working in my heart, trying to move things. And man, I was just like pushing back with all my might. And so Clayton comes out Thursday night, gives a Thursday night message, which if you know anything about Camp World, that's the hitter. That's the hitter message. And
Let's
so
go.
yeah, he comes out. I think it was the prodigal son. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was
Hmm.
the prodigal
Yeah.
son. And I had just realized, man, like I've been running, I have been doing anything I can to get away, and God is very, very clearly calling me to Himself. So
Mm.
I respond in faith. I stand up. I ask Jesus to save me, and man, from that moment, everything just changed. It was like the lights
Let's
came
go.
on, and
Yeah.
so I sit back down. I'm just puddle, just a mess. I'm, broken over
Mm.
my own sin, but excited and also just overwhelmed by the grace of God extended to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I sit back down, and then the worship set comes up, and then Clayton comes out after like 3 songs, and he's like, "Hey, I never do this. In fact, I don't know if I've ever done this, but I feel like there's some of you in the room right now who know that God is calling you into ministry, and I want to give you the opportunity to respond." And so, dude, I'm like super excited. I'm like,
Yeah.
yo, this is finna be awesome. Like, some people are gonna respond, and I get to like watch this. This is gonna be amazing. Like, how cool! Like, how cool is this? I've never sat through something like this before. And so I'm like looking around, and I'm like, man, like let's go. This is gonna be awesome. And Clayton's like, hey, I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to listen to the Spirit. Like, I'm asking you to close your eyes because I want you to focus and like listen to if the Lord is speaking to you. And so I close my eyes, and I'm like, okay. I mean, I know I'm going to take over my parents' farm and
Yeah.
do that. And so I'm just going to, play the part. I'm just going to close my eyes. And man, clear as a day, like a bullet hitting me, God was like, that is you. Stand
Mm.
up. And I remember sitting there with God for a moment. I was like, Lord, this has been a really crazy night. That I don't want to make a decision out of emotion. I feel like maybe my
Yeah.
emotions are talking, and I
Yeah.
don't want this to be an emotional thing. And so out of that moment, Clayton says, okay, now I want you to respond on 3. If that's you, 1, 2, 3, stand up. And so I like sit for a second, and then God is like,
Mm-hmm.
Nick, that's you, stand up. And so I
Wow.
stand up and just confused and not really understanding what I, had just fully decided, but knowing that
Yeah.
I heard God and not needing all the details, knowing that hearing God tell me that this was me was enough and that the details would
Yeah.
figure themselves out. And so again, hit the fast forward button over time, go home, and I just have a burden for my friends, have a burden for the lost. So I start, having conversations and praying with my friends, and uh, skipping lunch hour to go sit out on the wall, on the brick wall, and just talk to someone about whatever's
Mm.
going on at home, and inviting them to
Yeah.
FCA, and then preaching in churches like here and there around. Served on staff for Crossroads 2014,
Mm-hmm.
and then served again on staff 2017. Really grew a close friendship with Clayton, and then
Mm.
got married 2019. And shortly after that, I was invited onto the speakers team at CKM, Clayton King Ministries.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of other minute details in there
Yeah,
with social
bro.
media and just kind of how that's played into the whole ministry side of things. But I won't bore you guys with that. But that's really what the story has been like for
Dude,
me, man. Um,
I love that.
it's
I
been a
love
really
it.
wild journey in hindsight, and I'm sure I'm only getting started in some ways.
Oh yeah, man. No doubt. No doubt. And I love the fact that what I picked up on there was like just you heard the Lord and you're just like, okay. And a lot of people I think when they feel called, they want to have all the answers, right? And maybe you were even that guy, but the Lord just saying, "Hey, just put your yes on the table and we'll work it out day by day," right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a great reminder for anybody listening or watching that maybe you feel the tug of God on your life, you feel this pull. Hey, let me just encourage you. Hey, here's what the Lord wants, right? He wants your yes, and He's going to work out all the details. And man, for me, I don't need all the details typically in my life. I'm like, all right, let's just go. Give me the general direction. And but some people need those details, and I think both of them, the Lord's like, hey, I got this. All right, just put your yes on the table, follow me. And I think sometimes when you look back, like you are probably even right now, going, man, a lot has happened. The Lord has done a lot, and things you couldn't have ever dreamed or imagined,
Mm-hmm.
He's done, right? And so
Absolutely.
in that
Yeah.
moment, how old were you when you felt that call? 14,
14.
15,
Mm-hmm.
14. I mean, I know there are young kids watching this even, and you're going, man, can God really call someone at 14? I think Nick and others I've talked to, they say a resounding yes, and you won't understand it all in that moment, but you just got to put your yes out there. And then I think one thing that I heard you say, Nick, that was awesome was just, and you started walking in that where you were. You didn't wait till, oh, when I get out of high school, okay, I'll start pursuing that. No, you started conversation with friends at school, FCA, inviting people into your world, getting into their world, right? So out of that, what would you say to a high schooler, junior higher, who's like, man, I want to start telling my friends about Jesus, but I don't even know where to start? What would kind of some direction you would give them be today?
Yeah, that's great. I would say look for the hunger and look for the pain. because in my just honest opinion, we are all stricken before we know Jesus by this disease called sin. And so that sin, for people who are lost, is going to show itself in some type of way in their life, whether it be desperation and looking for something. So whether that is, you know, with the hookup crowd or with the party crowd or with the whatever crowd, they're looking for something. People don't just drink to drink. People don't just hook up to hook up.
Yeah.
People don't just do whatever to do whatever, or to be accepted by a society. I mean, they're looking for something. And if you watch more than 3 minutes of any Billy Graham sermon ever, he just harps on this. I mean, this was the whole really impetus of his ministry, is that humanity is searching from 10 years old to 100 years old. And we're all looking for something. And the thing that I really believe we're all looking for is the peace in our heart and peace with God, and to know that there is something more. And so I would say look for the pain points. Whenever you write a book, this is kind of also something they teach you, is write to the person where they are in the middle of their pain point. Address the pain point. And so whatever they are looking for, whatever it is that their life is seemingly trying to find, whether they're dealing with depression and anxiety or trouble at home, like if you are an ambassador of the gospel, if you carry the gospel with you, you carry living hope. You carry life with you. You carry light with you. You are the salt of the earth. And honestly, I just really believe that a lot of people who don't share the gospel, or who don't have a burden to share the gospel, is one, because I don't think that they fully understand how detrimental sin is and how detrimental being lost is, because maybe they've been a Christian for so long that they forgot how desperate and desolate and destitute it feels to be lost. People want salvation. I think we don't think about that enough. We look at the whole Bible every Sunday and we see all these Israelites crying out for one to save them, crying out for one to come and deliver them from this bondage of the law and of doing and keeping the rules and searching and going to idols. I mean, look at the Old Testament idols and, kind of make it a reference for today. Moloch and Baal and whatever else. And, Asherah poles and all this stuff, like sex and money and the job and the house and the wife and the this and the that and the whatever to fill the void. I think it was D.L. Moody who said, it may have been D.L. Moody who said, in essence, every human has a God-sized hole in their heart that nothing else can fill. People want salvation. People want to hear good news. And I just don't think that we think about that enough, because we're so uncomfortable, or we think that they just want to brush us off. And so I would say look for the pain points and then address it and just go for it. And if you feel like you need to warm up to it or take time, invite people and just begin conversations. Invite people to hang out with you, invite people to FCA, invite people to church, and then work that muscle of learning how to have those interactions and conversations with Jesus. And you don't have to get it. You don't have to get it 100% right. I mean, don't rely on yourself. Like, ask the Holy Spirit to give you words to help you have the power to see a spiritual condition of what they need. And then the most important part is speak to it. Just speak to it. Just see it, call it out, speak to it in love and compassion and grace. And let people know that there really is hope, that they don't have to stay dejected in their sin and just lost for forever.
I love that, man. I think one thing that I really picked up there, man, I thought is absolutely key, and I don't know that we've hit this on the podcast a whole lot, is just listen. Right. And if you're not listening to people, you don't pick up on their pain points. You don't pick up on their hungers. You don't pick up on their struggles. Right. And so that only happens in relationship. But when we are in that relationship and we're listening to people, I do believe you listen to them, then listen to the Holy Spirit, and He's going to give you the words to speak in that moment. You probably know 10 different ways to share the gospel. I know 10 different ways to share the gospel. And depending on the situation, maybe the way that the Lord brings up that, right? Whether it's telling your story or, hey, let me share this verse of encouragement, or the Roman road, whatever it may be. And, but I think that key there, man, of listening to where people are, listening for those pain points, listening for their struggles, really does allow us to go, hey, there is actually an answer for that. we have hope for that situation, because there's a lot of people that are just feeling hopeless. And so, man, thanks for sharing that, bro. I love that so much. That's so good. Well, Nick, man, this has been so good. I appreciate you taking time to share your story. Before we jump off, man, I obviously want you to tell people where they can connect with you, where they can and continue to. I know you shared some. We'll drop it in the show notes. And I want you to share where they can connect with you and tell us about your book one more time, because I think this will be super helpful. The things you shared about me to me about it earlier, man. I'm like, man, there are people who need to know about this resource. So how can people connect with you? Tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, 100%. You can find me on social at official Nick H, primarily Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and then you can find us on YouTube. Just type in Nick and Chelsea or Nick and Chelsea Hurst. We'll come right up. You can see us there. And then, this new book we just wrote, Marriage Minded, 10 Ways to Know If You Found the One. So if you're single, dating, engaged, anything like that, this would be a great resource for you. It's just 10 questions, 10 biblical points that we think that all couples should work through who want to pursue a healthy marriage inevitably in the future. So it's not a marriage book. It is a book to become marriage minded, hence the title. And so, we think it'd be really beneficial for you if you just really want some assurance as to either who you're dating or who you will date or who you're maybe engaged to or thinking about getting engaged with. Truly is the right one from a biblical frame of reference. And then obviously travel and speak as well. And I'm a speaker with Clayton King Ministries. You can just go to claytonking.com and request a speaker, and I'm on there somewhere. Got a whole host of lineups. So if I'm not your cup of tea, there might be someone on there who is. And man, that's pretty much kind of everything going on in my world right now. And that's all the places that people can connect with me.
Dude, that's awesome. And I know you guys will continue to be just encouraged by him. We'll drop all of his information in the show notes, whether you're watching or listening. So make sure you go follow, man, check out what God's doing in. I know you will be encouraged by Nick and Chelsea. And so I encourage you to go and just, man, see what God is up to in their world. Now, Nick, let me bring it full circle here, bro. Let me just, we got to ask the question, right? So is Nick Hurst a dog guy or a cat guy? Let us hear it.
I'm gonna just let that simmer for a second. I'm gonna just build the anticipation.
I like it.
So I currently, right now, am the proud owner of what is he? He's a 2000. He's a late 2020 model of a golden retriever.
Let's go, man.
I love him with my entire heart. His name is Waldo. He's the best thing ever. And bro, I'm totally a dog guy. So I grew up with dogs and cats, but I've always had an affinity for dogs.
Yeah.
So they're just big buddies, big fluff buddies.
That's right.
And so
that's right, man.
Dog guy.
Did I see him walking around the house there earlier? Was that him?
He
walking
might
around
have.
the house
I don't know.
earlier?
Maybe you did.
Yeah.
He's probably. He's laying over there in the corner. Yeah. So
I love it.
Yeah, that's my buddy.
Love it, man. Oh man, that's good stuff. Well, bro, I love you, man. I'm so appreciative of what God is doing in you and through you, just the encouragement you are. There's a lot of people who think, man, this whole Gen Z, they're lost. And I'm telling you, God is doing a move in them, raising up leaders, calling people out. And they are leveraging the gospel in ways that, man, we never knew possible, man. So thank you for what you're doing, not just on social, not just on YouTube, but I know as you travel and speak, man, God's anointing is on you. So, man, thank you for what you do. I pray for you. And thanks for just taking time to be on here today, bro.
Man, of course, this was a lot of fun, and likewise to you, man. You're a major inspiration to me and everything you do with R.A.G.E and the rest of your ministry, traveling and speaking. I mean, it's been a real joy and privilege to follow you and to see all that God's doing in you and through you, and a role model, I think, for younger guys and girls, a little bit, maybe a few steps behind you to kind of look to as someone who we can say, like, man, they're doing it right, they're doing it honorably, and in the right way. And so I appreciate you for that, man, and appreciate you letting me come on today. It was a lot of fun.
Dude, Absolutely, my pleasure. And for everybody watching or listening, hey, let me encourage you to go check out 1millioncent.com. There you can get free training and resources and encouragement to continue to both know how to share Jesus in your everyday life. And if you're a leader, there are free resources there for you to leverage to help train those under you on how to share the gospel in everyday life. And so we are so thankful for your time. If something resonated with you today in what Nick had to share, and you thought, man, I need to share that with somebody. I wish so-and-so could hear this. Hey, they can. Share it with them. Let them know. Just shoot them a text. Hit that share button. Shoot them a text. Say, hey, you need to listen to this guy. I think you'll be encouraged. So no matter where you are, no matter what realm you're in, no matter what day it is, listen to me right now. I always like to close with this, and that is this reminder. Today is a great day to tell someone about Jesus. So let's go.